to STOked, the ultimate Star Trek online podcast. My name is Chris.
My name is Jeremy.
Hey there, Jeremy. I like that.
Hi.
That was good, you know?
It was meaty.
Yeah, it did. It had good flavor. All right, now we got something fun planned for this episode. It's our last episode of 2010.
I don't know if you guys realize this, but the year is coming to a close.
It's crazy. It seems like it happens every year. And it was probably almost to the day last year.
Mm-hmm.
December 30th, we had an episode come out that was our predictions for STOked in 2010. It was season 1, episode 17.
Adorable. We still use seasons.
I know. We were adorable back then. And we kind of like had all these grand ideas about 2010 and where it was going to lead for STO.
Mm-hmm.
And we thought, it's time to look back, see what we got right, see what we got wrong, and then do the same thing for 2011.
Yeah.
I love doing that because it involves a little bit of self-criticizing when you know you got it wrong and you still got to admit to it.
Yep.
And then I got to take the risk of making another wrong one.
Yeah.
You hope it turns out right.
I want to tell you, everybody up front, though, I'm going big this time with my predictions.
You are
I'm going very
big.
specific.
I took a peek.
So hold out for those.
Yeah. And then we've got the community feedback segment coming up later in the episode. We're going to feature a couple of submitted Foundry episode ideas, and I like what we found, and we're going to dig through a couple of those with you. But before we get into all of that, we've got to give you a heads up regarding next week. It's Christmas. It's the holiday season here.
Oh, crap. I should probably get some shopping done.
I know. Well, we keep recording these shows instead of shopping.
I know.
So the warning is the next STOked, we do these live on Saturday at 11 a.m. Next week, well, that's Christmas.
It is.
So we're not doing a STOked next week.
No, that'd be crazy.
No, that would be crazy. So we'll be back on January 1st doing a live episode, with that being released on January 4th.
All hungover from our massive parties we've been invited to across the globe.
That'll be our first Jupiter Broadcasting show of 2011.
Yeah.
That'll be cool.
Yeah.
We'll probably be hungover because it is the first. Big warning, though, up front. I don't know exactly what's going to happen with the show schedule. That's our target. But my wife is like, this is super close to having our second child.
Yeah. That could happen it could be happening right now.
It probably. The last time it happened, I was recording a show.
Really?
I'm always recording a show, so the chances are pretty good.
Yeah. The odds are.
So just a heads up, we don't know exactly if everything's going to work out as planned, but that's the idea.
Yep.
All right, now let's jump into our predictions and results.
Okay, well, one of the big ones that we made last year was we had a big discussion on whether or not STO was going to be Trek enough.
Oh yeah.
To bring in some Trek fans outside of just MMO fans.
And that's a conversation that's kind of continued through 2010.
I think actually all of our predictions from last year and our comments that we made were conversations that are still happening. It's really interesting to see a year later we're still having the same conversations.
But they've progressed.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Now, is it Trek enough? I think my contention last time was that as long as it's Star Trek, it's Trek enough. Just like the new 2009 movie is Star Trek, it's a different telling of Star Trek.
Well, one of the major points that you made last year was that you've never, until we started doing STOked, basically, you never like sat down and ranked the different series.
Yeah.
You never tried to see whether or not
Voyager,
the original series.
I never really got
Voyager.
hung up. Is Voyager better than the Next Generation? Is that better than the original series was?
Because Trek is Trek.
Yeah, and it's just Star Trek, and I've always enjoyed it, and it's just that incarnation of it that I've liked.
Now that I and Brian, but prior to me, have forced you into that
to categorize them and rank them,
do you have an opinion on how STO stacks up to the series?
To the TV series, it's probably the least similar to the TV series, even from the TV series from themselves, with the exception of maybe the original series in the Next Generation. But it's also 25 years out, and so you gotta expect that because you're gonna have newer ships. You're not gonna have the same people. So I think they've still really nailed them. One of the things I really liked coming into the game, and I hope people still have this as their first impression, is there's a lot of Star Trek nods. Yeah, which is great. And I think that it is Star Trek. I think it has room to improve there. And that I'm just going to go ahead and throw my prediction for 2011 in. We've already seen it in the Ask Cryptic, the last Ask Cryptic that we got at the beginning of December. Their goal is to make it more Star Trek. Yeah. That's going to be a major focus of season 4. It sounds like. I mean, that's just what the early reports are saying. So I think that's going to happen. I think it's going to continue to happen. I think we'll really see it now in 2011.
I'll be honest. I think that through the early life of the game and less so now with like the weekly series feel a lot more Trek than some of the early content.
Yeah.
But a lot of times some of those Star Trek nods felt like nods.
Yeah, they were,
and they felt
nods.
like an MMO just throwing in a Star Trek reference.
I know, but
not every time. Sometimes they were very Trekky.
Yeah, like the
whole Guardian of Forever arc was very Trek.
And the one where you beam down and you're talking to the workers, the miners, and they're concerned about holograms replacing them, and they have names that are nods.
That's actually one that I felt was just
too much.
A nod. It was
unless
they actually bring the Horta onto that planet and have it a part of that story, then using all the names of the characters and stuff like that is just a nod. And
True.
it could be done in Warcraft or EverQuest. You could make a mining mission with the names.
You have to be pretty canon aware to get the nod.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think that speaks to the developers and their knowledge of Trek.
Yeah.
But it didn't come across so much in the early content as being Trek. It was more like content made by people that knew Trek.
What about later on, like with the missions where you're saving Paris's daughter?
Oh,
and, that kind of stuff. I think. Oh, I guess it's
all through the Romulan stuff as well. The fleshing out of the Hobus quest line, very Trekky.
And there was definitely story elements that added depth to Star Trek stories. I guess that's and that's really, I think, that when I found that STO gameplay was the most rewarding for me, because honestly, there's just certain gameplay mechanics that an MMO and a role-playing game have that not everyone's always going to find to be the most enjoyable gameplay. At least for me, there's just certain things that are going to happen. But as long as it's rewarding from a Star Trek fan point, and I know I reflected on this when they launched the new weekly series. I think that was a whole new level of STO for me, because it was whoa, now I'm getting new episodic Star Trek content on a weekly basis again. I haven't had this for years.
And it, like we've said at the time, it made it feel like a show. We even started referring to them as episodes and post-production.
And it really, I think, nailed in the season. They started doing the season updates, and then that really started feeling like season updates.
Yep.
So that was cool. So I think it got there. It doesn't feel like another MMO with a Star Trek skin.
No. And early on, a lot of people said that it felt a lot like Champions Online.
Right.
With a Star Trek skin. Yeah. And you can still see the engine shining through on a few occasions, but it's very back-end type of stuff that just has to be there. All the stuff that matters is very Trek and very STO specific.
And it's going to get more so in 2011. That's my prediction. You see it going that way too?
Yeah, especially as the Foundry continues to get fleshed out. I see even more.
Yeah, because then now the fans are going to do Star Trek stuff.
Yeah, and they're going to have demands for new technology and new things that we can do in the game, and we're going to see those made into cryptic episodes as well, in addition to the Foundry. So
if we can shift gears into the Foundry just for a second, prediction-wise, this is another area that I have a big prediction around.
Okay.
And I think this is going to be more of one of the fundamental nuts and bolts changers for the game. In 2011, once the Foundry's in, if it's successful, there's going to be an issue where, you've got all these great missions to go through on the computer in STO. And you've got all this discussion that's going to need to happen, all this feedback, all this rating, all this organization, not rating, but ratings. And that's going to snowball into a place where Cryptic's going to have to accommodate that kind of accelerated growth. At least
that's one of the same predictions that I have for that.
So we might, and I almost hesitate to say this on air because I almost just want to do it myself, because I think it's a really good. I think it could be a money
in all of our free time.
Yeah, that's why I'm just gonna put it out there, because it'll just never happen.
Right.
What we really need, and I think UGC, the Foundry, is going to really push this. It's going to maybe be the straw. Is we've got all of these detached community resources, and what we have to keep in mind when I'm talking about this is there's just not any real documentation for Star Trek Online from Cryptic.
Right.
So there is this, to have a complete
we use
premium.
We use the term tribal knowledge quite a bit, and it really is
to have a premium game title that is really all encompassing with amazing content and amazing community. You also have to have an underlying support of documentation so people can get in and know how to play the game. Now the community fills that role, and that is Cryptic's intention. They figured the game's going to change so much, we'll just defer to the community because they'll keep it alive. And you're seeing StarbaseUGC.com,
StoWiki is a really great site for that.
Jupiter Force. Yep. All that stuff is good, but it's Trek Radio, helium frequencies, all these
Subspace Radio as well. Yeah.
Subspace Radio, and we were on Bear's Cave, and that's a great show. And all these different things are completely detached. Our stuff, everything we put out. There's a lot of people that don't watch Stoked that could have really used your math crafting segment from last episode. And what I almost would like to see is Star Trek Online/community or community.startrekonline.com, and it could just be a feed aggregator,
just a portal.
Maybe, and this is just because how my brain works, and I just kind of think of stuff in the terms of our website. But what I really like about JupiterBroadcasting.com, and this is what I think they could do, is we have a main featured content slider. So this could be supplied from an RSS feed to Cryptic, the latest thing that Trek Radio has put out, Subspace Radio, STOked, and they could go through it, and people could slide through it, and then you could have down here, you could have links to wikis, you could have links to forums and things like that. Like
most popular articles and things like that, most recent articles.
Murphy in the chat room right now, before the show started, came out and said, "Hey guys, it's awesome you're doing this episode because you know what? This is how I found Jupiter Broadcasting, was your Stowe predictions episode last year. That is how I found Stowe, and now I'm playing." And not only is Murphy playing, but Murphy is an active player, a very active player, and he's already in the Foundry making great. He's got the number 7th ranked Foundry mission right now.
Yeah.
Because he found Stowe through our show. And there's every other Star Trek Online media out there has that same story.
Dear Stowe fans, you're welcome.
What my point is they need to utilize this resource and wrangle it up and get a focus on it.
Right.
Because there's a certain ceiling that each individual media platform is going to hit, blogs, podcasts, and things like that, and then they're going to need cross-pollination.
Right.
And if Cryptic can help them grow, then they're going to bring it's sort of like it's going to come back. It's going to pay dividends in a sense. And UGC and the Foundry are going to be the impetus to this need because there's going to be so much collaboration that's going to happen. It's just going to have to be taken out of the game and put online. And they're going to need something from Cryptic to make that happen.
I totally agree, and I'll take it one step in a different direction, but I think even further.
Go.
My prediction, maybe it's just a hope, but my prediction is that Cryptic will actually step up and assign somebody to be the Foundry community leader out on their site.
That's controversial.
No, on their site. Somebody at Cryptic.
Oh, at Cryptic.
Yeah.
That
actually works for them, that is their point of contact for Foundry PR, for Foundry community representatives.
What about like an App Store type layout? You know what I mean? Now, App Stores are the hotness, but what if you went in there and you could browse the latest Stowe community-related content?
Oh, absolutely.
And click on it and go there. And, and what if instead of buy an app, it was RSS feed subscribe button? Subscribe to the latest Stowe Wiki updates. And wouldn't it be great if there was some sort of community interaction? Now, of course, there's Tribble, and that helps a ton. And we'll get into the Cryptic PR stuff that has helped a ton. But wouldn't it be great if there was a, hey, Stowe Wiki, coming up in a month when season 3 hits, here's the output of the things they're going to change, and maybe some sort of high-level breakdown so they could start preparing to update the documentation. That way there isn't a 3 to 4 month lags that I'm not looking up old information when it's already been changed in the game.
Yeah, or actually this is a very good point. The recent math segment I did on crafting, Stowe Wiki only updated their page for that like a day before I did my math segment. It was difficult to do some of the upfront research because there were no resources online until almost the last second.
Now, I want to transition from that into the PR.
Yeah.
Because in 2009, December 30th, when the previous episode came out, we said, state of Cryptic PR is atrocious.
Yes.
And that was a huge issue.
I'm sure most of you remember. Actually, that episode came right on the tail end of the announcement that Klingons would be a PvP-only faction.
Right.
And it was a enormous blow-up. That also, if you recall, came right on the tail end of the whole buy-in to beta thing.
Yep.
Where that was just starting to die down, and then all of a sudden it exploded all over again.
And it was community council.
Which happened pretty much at the tail end of when that Klingon thing was starting to die down.
It was a series of bad PR moves, and they hadn't started up the engineering reports, the Ask Cryptic, or the calendar.
Right.
And there wasn't really a dialogue happening in the forum because it was still under NDA, and so there was a lot of push for information, but they couldn't give it, and it was in a bad way.
One of the things that we mentioned last year was that we were getting that we felt like Cryptic was having to deal with us as a big company, like somebody that was very much trying to control the flow of information. That was just trying to feed us little bits and not listening to what we said about those little bits. And then so the entire community would go off the handle and make assumptions, or that was actually the whole reason the Klingon thing broke down, was because they sent this trailer out that was really epic. That was a really good trailer.
But it was manufactured. It wasn't in-game content.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So not only did it change our expectations of what we might be seeing in game and make just flat out wrong assumptions, but it also tried to paint the Klingons as this massive warfaring that would be able to control the fate of the universe, through their warfare. None of that is in the game.
No.
And then, so that trailer comes out, and then the announcement comes out that none of that is happening. It was a huge disappointment and a major communication fail.
And now, through 2010, I think that it has been a complete 180, though. I just don't know a lot of other game companies that come out and publicly state their release targets. I mean, it is like now that it seems like it's before, the only way we get any solid information is when a dev finally broke down and just leaked something in the forum. And now we've actually got from the top, we're getting these engineering reports and the Ask Cryptics and the calendar. We're getting active participation in the forums. Obviously having Tribble now has been a huge sort of way to determine what's coming down the road. So that communication, that PR from Cryptic has been an immense improvement.
Yes, absolutely.
And it's really it's what supports my idea that a community aggregation, something that was curated for the community, would help, because I think you saw an explosion in Star Trek Online community resources as soon as they started getting more transparent. As soon as they started supplying us with more information, because we can't come on here and have nothing to say.
No. And neither can anybody else. Subspace radio and hailing frequencies and all them, they need something to talk about.
So when they started getting more open and supplying us with more information and able to provide more because the NDAs were lifted and things like that, you saw an eventual payoff in what that information. That information has value.
It's you said something in the previous episode that I want to restate, because I think you were right then and you're right now.
All right.
The community is the only thing that can scale with the size of the game.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't matter if Cryptic has 10 million people playing the game.
You wouldn't want Cryptic to turn into a 5,000 person development shop or something.
But it doesn't matter how big they get or how small they get. The amount of people participating in the community grows as the community requires.
And the founder's going to put pressure on that in a big way.
Yeah.
So it'd be interesting. Okay. If you want to change gears to another sort of area we got into last time?
We're talking about PR and the engineering reports and everything like that. I do want to give a shout out. I think that bringing Dan Stahl into the executive producer position has been a major boon to this game in many ways.
Stahl has a very genuine communication approach. When he's talking and writing, you feel like, oh, he's honestly telling me what's going on. And as not only somebody that's covering it, but also someone who's paying or has paid for this game, and it's my money that I'm giving them, I like getting honest, open communication.
He's clearly got a passion for Trek and a passion for the project.
But we should say, though, that when Craig Zinkovich was executive producer, that's when the engineering reports and the calendar and that stuff started. So that communication started under Zing.
It's possible that he pioneered it and just never got to see the payoff.
And Stahl is, either way, Stahl has taken the ball and taken it even further. And I don't think there's any dispute there that also a lot of the content, the episodes have been a huge win. That's got to be my concern for 2011 is team burnout, because while I think my prediction is I think we're gonna see a slowdown for Stowe at maybe mid 2011
in terms of content production.
In terms of just overall, eventually the game's gonna reach a stabilization and feature improvement standpoint more and more. I mean, it's kind of we're there. Season 3's that.
It is,
and you've got a team who's just got to be working their sacks off to get these weekly games out when we're doing those. I mean, just for somebody from a couple of guys that know what it's like to get something out on a weekly basis, there is just that is something that is in movement and it cannot be stopped, or else everything around it completely falls apart. And that kind of stress and that kind of workload is something hard to sustain.
Even more respect for them now that I've tried to make something in the Foundry.
Yeah.
Whoa.
So I'm really surprised if team burnout is an issue. You see that they're in there at different hours of the night. They're Stahl too. So I worry about Stahl. I worry about the rest of the team reaching some sort of burnout point. But so far they've continued to deliver, and there hasn't been an issue.
Do you anticipate any form of turnover that we might see coming
I'm sure
down
that's
this?
always going to happen. I hope that there's a good culture being built now, that the team's kind of getting some things that are working really well, and I hope that we'll see them really build a unique product, because if you get a really good team, a really good culture built around a dev shop, the content that they can make, this cohesive team can make, is just really going to be top notch. So
I think that it's really important for the people making the project to not only enjoy what they're doing, but who they're working with.
I hope so.
So
it's not always possible. I mean, a job's a job.
Yeah.
But hopefully at the core of it, there's some passion there, and I think when we went down there, a little less than a year ago, we saw an incredible amount of passion.
Yep.
So We'll see. Let's hope
across the board, not just from the STO team, but they also have a lot of interaction with their CO folks and QA that handle both games and things like that. So,
gosh, we touched on a little bit. You want to talk a little about the Klingons? I mean, I think 2010, that has just been a constant conversation, is the Klingons.
Well, it was very poignant in the last episode because, like I said, it came right on the tail end of the whole blow-up over the fact that PvP was going to be the sole action that a Klingon could take. And I think that we know that Cryptic is willing at this point to learn from their mistakes and to admit their mistakes. I think that anybody on the project at this point understands that trying to launch a game with a one type of content faction was a failure. And as we continue to go through 2011, I think we're going to see more and more content for the Klingons. I'm really hoping that at this point they'll kind of go back on the idea that they had in 2010 that all future content will be faction agnostic. So anything that comes out in the future will be just...
Well, we've seen some Season 3 updates that were Klingon specific.
Yeah, and all those PvE missions for the Klingons, the bringing down the house and the Fekiri and everything like that, those are fantastic. Those are the my favorite content I played on the KDF side, regardless of who it was made for.
Why?
Because it was Klingons.
Yeah.
It was for the Klingons. Yes, it absolutely felt Star Trek.
Yeah. When they get the Star Trek part right, a lot of the other stuff matters a lot less.
I think that as they go forward with inserting more Trek into the game, I think they're going to find that they need to pay more attention to the Klingon-specific content. I hope so anyway, because they deserve it.
Well, we're going to jump in a little bit. We're going to jump into the community feedback, and there's a episode that we're going to talk about that involves the Klingons in a very unique Star Trek likely way, and that's why I liked it.
Yeah.
So the KDF, that's going to be a conversation that's going to continue, although the dialogue's starting to change. Another conversation that's been up and down all over 2010. You got to wonder if it's really going to happen in 2011. I'm a little nervous to make it a prediction, but let's just talk about it really quick. Free-to-play.
Oh.
Free-to-play in 2011 going to be discussed? Are we going to be sitting here at the end of 2011 and it's going to be talked about as a beta option, like right now, how Champions is going to be going? Like, we know Champions will go free-to-play in 11.
Yep.
So are we going to know that about STO at the end of 2011?
I honestly don't think so. The way that I feel about this title is that it's premium. And unless the entire industry shifts over to that freemium model, I don't see STO following suit.
Right.
I think that they're going to stick with the model that works for them, and this works for them.
Well, and if you watch Atari's financials, and that's a good way to see how committed they are to their different franchises. If you watch Atari, 60% of Atari's overall revenues come from their online titles. Well, what's that? That's STO. Champions Online and STO.
Yeah,
and it's probably not a lot of money coming from Champions
Online. Oh, and that racing Need for Speed.
Yeah,
World
there's a couple other titles in there, but the powerhouse on that list, believe it or not, is STO.
Yeah,
that's the moneymaker. And right now, Atari needs that money. And you figure if you go free to play, there's a lot of revenue opportunities there, but there's gonna have to be a huge cost during the transition.
Yeah,
it could even be like who knows what that window of time where you're probably losing money, and right now they're making money.
Right.
And as soon as they start losing money or just not making as much money, they'll probably talk about it as a way to continue to boost revenue. But right now they can milk that for a little bit and help that bottom line, so they can absorb it later on.
See, and that's one of the reasons that I don't see 2011 being a time to announce that. I think that the game continues to get stronger.
Right. What's its main challenge in 2011 going to be? The Old Republic.
Right.
And I was just thinking, if the Old Republic hits and it hits big, you could see a 6-month STO. All right, I think we might be talking free to play in 2012. That could be the factor.
Yeah.
I think with UGC, and I was thinking, making it more Star Trek. And when I was saying that, I was trying to think of an example. And I really like in the new sector space when you mouse over a planet, you get the little encyclopedia pop up. And it's done slickly, and it would be slick because it's a computer from the 24th century, and that's really what they've got to remember when they're working with your UI. It's a 24th century UI, and so when that
and a touch interface.
And I'll tell you this: I was reading a mission dialogue. I closed the mission dialogue, and then I was going to Deferi. And I was reading a mission dialogue. I closed it, and when I closed it, then the planet thing popped up. It wasn't this mishmash of window over window, which I think we would have had back at the launch.
Yep.
Now it's getting a little slicker. You take that polish, you take the Foundry, and now I think Star Trek Online's got a serious Star Trek competitor.
I think that's where they will
go. Republic. Yeah.
And a Trek fan, a truly hardcore Trek fan,
it's going to stay with Stowe for
is
sure.
going to stick with Stowe.
But you take the Foundry, and you don't even have to be a hardcore fan to at least want to check that out.
Absolutely.
And right now, the entry to that Foundry is that $14 a month.
Yep.
So that could be what keeps them going, but we'll see. I don't know. All right. Anything else?
I don't think that we'll see. I just want to state again, I don't think we'll see Stowe go free to play anytime in 2011. Now, the thing that I will make a massive
I can see that.
prediction here.
Yeah.
At the end of 2011, we will hear an expansion announcement for Stowe. And that expansion will include the Romulans playable, 3 or 4 new sectors, and a whole new espionage-type gameplay for the Romulans, just like the Federation has diplomatic corps.
Yeah.
I think that is what we're looking forward to.
And what will that look like? So you get points. You'll have missions that are maybe not combat missions.
It'll really come down. I mean, mechanics wise,
yeah.
It'll play a lot like a diplomatic mission.
But instead of
DXP, you'll get EXP,
which would be just
espionage
some sort of
experience.
Espionage.
Yeah.
I think that's great.
And then it'll only require very creative mission writing. But that's where a lot of the new technology coming for the Foundry, I think, is going to finally start to pay off.
Espionage experience. I really like that. I that would be a great way to do the Romulans.
So that's my big fat prediction for 2011.
You don't think it's going to hit, but you think we'll get the announcement.
Exactly.
That's the 2012 teaser.
Because we know that they're not going to begin hardcore work on the next faction, which we're pretty sure is going to be Romulans, until they have the Klingons in a better place.
Would you be surprised if we only saw season 4 and 5 in 2011?
Yes. I think by their current schedule, we should see 6 or 7 by the end of 2011.
Yeah. I'm wondering if they're going to slow down.
I don't think that they can really afford to.
I agree.
Yeah.
I think it would be a mistake.
You know what? We talked a lot last year, and it's not even an issue this year.
Oh, what's that?
We talked about J.J. Abrams.
Oh,
I mean, we spent a huge portion of the episode last year talking about the impact that the new Trek will have on the franchise and on the game.
This year.
No, and we don't even really have like a plot or a script.
No, it's middle of
Most
next
of the
year,
casting
right?
for anybody.
To see it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think it makes any difference now.
Last year I
its own thing
said that the impact that movie's had on the franchise has already been had, and anything after this is just gravy.
I think you're right. I think Stowe at that point didn't have an identity per se, and now it's its own living. It doesn't need to associate with another Star Trek property.
I agree.
One last prediction that I have is I'd like to see, and I hope it's a prediction that turns out right, is I'd like to see a combination of voiceovers, cutscenes, and at least the obfuscation of zoning. I'd like to see, like, I don't know how you could do it. If there could be like there's a tool in the game called demo record, and you don't have to render. You can do fly through missions, and you can play it on the fly. You don't have to render it. And what if little demo files were stored that kicked off during zoning?
Yeah.
And did a flyby of that zone or something with voiceovers or something like that. Because the chat room's talking about it right now. You and I feel like zoning kills the mood.
It does.
And if you could wrap me up. And if it's happening while zoning, I'm not likely able to skip it, so I'm actually gonna have to pay attention. And you idiots out there need to listen to some of this stuff. You people are not reading. I'm just being a mean guy.
But even folks,
really, you should listen. You know, it would be a perfect way
honestly,
to hide
though,
that.
there are folks in our fleet who are pretty hardcore Stowe fans that don't know some of the plots that are going on.
Exactly.
They're like,
people aren't reading.
Wait, the Orion did what?
And they need to do that, but the problem is once you're in game, it's the wrong time.
Yeah.
You're on a mission.
Yep.
Literally, and you want to get that mission accomplished.
Yep.
And you feel this pressure not to read it. But if you could shrink it down and deliver it to me during zones, or maybe at different parts in the mission where it was then going into a demo record playback and a voiceover, then you're going to get the attention of the player.
I honestly feel that we are definitely going to get more voiceovers. The things like the Bonniekin from the Halloween mission, the Guardian of Forever is another one that exists and has existed for a long time. So we know the tech is already there. It's not something new. It's just something that hasn't really been fully exploited.
Yeah. Well, it takes time to get it right and to record all those.
I think it's going to take some time before we get those demo record cutscene intros, but I think they will come as well.
I wouldn't be surprised if the mechanic that they use to deliver it is a weekly episode where there's something that's complicated and you need to have a general overview of the map. And you could do a flyby of the map to sort of explain the destination. And realistically, if you're in space, oh snaps. Oh snaps.
I think your brain just melted.
Well, okay. What we've been complaining about the tribal knowledge. In fact, we got an email that said, guys, yeah, the tribal knowledge thing is ridiculous. I think you should mention that the episode replays are in your ready room every single episode until they put something in game that tells you.
Well, I think that's 4 episodes running now.
Yeah. So we've always said, well, it won't be a problem if they give you a reason to go to your ship interior.
Yeah.
What if you could be on your bridge, walk over to a science station, and then pull up this stuff?
Punch up the briefing.
Yeah, because if you go into orbit on something, you're going to scan the planet before you beam down. You're going to get an overview of the structure. You're going to get an idea of how many life signs are down there. You are a freaking captain in the 24th century. You have sensors. You have tricorders. The fact that you go down blindly now is completely non-canon. So what if you went to your bridge, pulled it up, and if you wanted that extra information, it could be like a memory alpha retrieval something or whatnot. And you could even have some missions where, sorry, Captain, we can't contact memory alpha.
Yeah.
So it could be some BS excuse if they can't supply all the content yet.
Right.
And then you go retrieve it there. And you use demo record, you use voiceovers. Oh man. And that'd be perfect. Like say if you had a half hour.
Yeah.
You had a half hour to play Stowe. And I always say with all of the travel and all of the zoning, that means you really got 10 minutes to play Stowe.
Right.
So what if instead you could go to your bridge and just sit back for a little bit and just read a little bit about an episode you're going to play when you have more time?
Read your briefings on everything that's sitting in your journal.
I absolutely would do that.
Yeah, I would too.
Maybe even make it web-based. Maybe don't make it interior. I don't know what the right answer is there. I still want a reason to go to my bridge. But, I'd love to see that.
Yeah.
I'd love to see that. I don't think I have any other major predictions, though.
If anything, I would like to see that incorporated as something else like a replay. Even if it's only available while you play the mission, if you have some sort of a log where you can go back and replay the cinematics, if you want to call them that.
Anything else? Any other procrastination?
What have I got? Nope.
No?
I've dropped my bombs.
All right, dude. Well, sweet. Maybe we'll get a chance to visit this at the end of 2011 and see how
I
we
hope
did.
so.
Okay, let's get into the community feedback.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's important.
And welcome to community feedback. I'm excited about this segment. I'll set it up for you.
Okay.
Step 1, cut a hole in the segment. Step 2.
No, wait. No, that's something else.
Oh. Okay.
Let's try something else.
We asked you to send in your best ideas for the Foundry. Missions that could be made in the Foundry.
It just so happens that the ones that we found have been made in the
all been
Foundry.
made. That wasn't a requirement.
No.
But that means that we'll have the names of each of them that we've selected in the show notes. We're going to ask you to go there to vote because whichever one wins, we're going to make an epic trailer to showcase it on the show here.
Yeah.
It also means you could go play it in the game, too.
It also means if you are the creator of whatever mission gets voted in, that you will have the full resources of Jupiter Force at your disposal if you request it once the Foundry hits live.
Yeah, we can build
Hits
it out.
holodeck.
We could make a series out of it, whatever you think is the right way
Even
to
if
go.
all you need is playtesting or script editing or something
But
like that, we're there for you.
We need your vote. So go over to jupiterbroadcasting.com, click on the episode 63 show notes, go in there. There'll be a little voter thing. You just click on the episode you like, and then it'll be casted.
Yeah.
All right, let's get into the first one, J-Man.
Okay. The first one is called The Longing. This is by Rachel Garrett, who, side note, is one of the main administrators for STOWiki. So she's got some chops.
Interesting.
So the story behind
Rachel
The Longing.
Garrett's also the captain of the Enterprise C, or was.
That's right.
Yeah.
Until they blew it up.
Yeah. Well, she got a spike in her chest.
Oh, there was that too.
Yeah.
Pre-blew up.
That was, well, yeah, depends on the timeline.
But apparently she's fine now and making excellent missions.
Dude, it's Star Trek.
I'm feeling better now.
It's just a scratch.
All right, so the story of The Longing is that you are sent to investigate a Borg attack on a seemingly innocuous colony in the Gamma Orionis sector. In other words, it's a place that it doesn't seem like there's any reason for the Borg to be going there.
Right.
Along the way, you'll have to investigate a silicon-based life form, encounter a deranged El-Arian, like a relative of...
An El-Orion.
El-Orion? Mm-hmm. And
that's
solve a
Guinan
mystery.
Species and Soren from the Generations episode.
And finally, you will solve a mystery that puts that entire colony at stake.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That is pretty cool.
All in a single mission. I was able to play through this on Tribble.
Yeah?
I really enjoyed it.
Yeah?
It's a great mission.
Awesome.
I mean, even if this one doesn't win our competition, Go try it out.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's The Longing, so check that one out in the show notes. Now, the next one is Circle of Deceit
Now, this is actually the first in a series.
by Fewez. How do you say his name? Do you spell it?
Fuse, I think.
Fewz?
Yeah.
Oh, cleverly spelled. Fewzz. I like that.
Yeah. So this is the first in a series. I think there are 3 or 4 missions to this one. I was only able to play the first so far. You're called to assist in a search and rescue mission, but you quickly find out that all is not as it seems. The admiral you're sent to rescue has secretly been assisting a Gorn resistance movement to splinter away from the KDF and provide the Federation with valuable intel. And you must ensure the safety of that Gorn representative.
Oh, okay.
Along the way, you will have to survive an ambush of superior space forces.
Now, this is what I was talking about in the last segment. I said there's an episode in there that involves like in introducing a new conflict between the Gorn and the Klingon. It doesn't totally work story-wise, but I love the idea, and I love how it works into this episode. So I think Circle of Deceit really nailed this interesting subcontext that would be there because the Gorn are an extremely proud race.
Yep.
The Klingons are a very extremely proud, honor-bound race. So you don't really see the Gorn being the Klingons' dog for too long.
And if you recall, that whole war between the Gorn and the Klingons was basically facilitated by the Undine.
Yeah.
So
it was sort of coerced into happening.
Right.
So and now the Klingons basically are rulers over the Gorn, but you could totally see that changing. And I love that this starts to sort of break the cracks at it.
Just one little Easter egg here as well.
Yeah.
This group of Gorn holds the Federation in high regard because of an ancient captain, spacefaring captain, who defeated one of their greatest warriors in one-on-one combat.
So they take that old arena episode and they make that battle between Kirk and that Gorn. That Gorn was somebody really important.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
You don't know. Why not say that?
Right.
It totally is. You could make,
Yeah.
And that's why they chose that person to fight.
Yeah.
Kirk. Oh man, take the Federation's best versus the Gorn's best, and the Federation won, and so now that faction respects.
They call their little splinter movement the Kirk movement.
Okay. All right.
I might be taking it a little too far, but that's the story behind it.
So go over to the show notes, see if you like that one. Vote for Circle of Deceit, or at least go play it. Foundry on Tribble. All right, what's our next one?
Our last one is by Admiral Murphy, who we mentioned earlier, has sent in quite a few different stories.
Yeah.
Now, this first one that we're going to be bringing up is called Deep Space 11.
Yeah.
Now, this mission is an introductory to an entire arc that Murphy has planned.
And the Circle of Deceit was also going to have an arc.
That's true.
And I love arcs because it just gives me something to look forward to. So, Murphy, you get points for that right there.
So this Deep Space 11 is an introductory mission that takes you to a station deep in the Gamma Quadrant, where the Federation has set up an exploratory space station.
How do you get to the Gamma Quadrant?
Through the wormhole at Deep Space Nine.
Oh, you can use it?
Well, there's a little Foundry workaround. He basically has you dock at Deep Space Nine, get your briefing, and then head through an airlock, and all of a sudden you're in the Gamma Quadrant.
All right. I mean,
So it's a little
cheaty. But you got to do because
You have
of the tool.
to,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Now, once you are there in the Gamma Quadrant, you find out that there's also another stable wormhole there at Deep Space 11 or nearby there that actually leads to an entirely different galaxy.
Whoa! So it's not just a quadrant hop.
Right.
You're hopping galaxies.
You're
out of the Milky Way.
You hop over to the Deep Space 11, and then you hop out to the Antonidian galaxy.
So you don't really spend any time in the Gamma Quadrant.
Well, you do. You do, because actually this very first mission, Deep Space 11, is you're defending this space station from an attack by the Dominion. Just a raiding party.
So the Dominion's kind of getting hostile again.
Yeah, well, you've invaded their space.
True.
In some ways.
That's true.
And even though we have kind of a tense ceasefire with the Dominion.
It is tense, though. It's it's tentative. It's like, okay.
Yeah.
I like that. I like, again, fractures there in the
There's even
divisions.
one more fracture, because at the end of the mission, you are again encountering superior forces sent by the Dominion. Forces that you probably would not be able to defeat on your own, but coming to the rescue is a Jem'Hadar captain. Who is leader of a splinter faction that's trying to win the Jem'Hadar's freedom from the Dominion.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he's like one of those Jem'Hadars. You've seen a couple of different stories in DS9 where you've got a Jem'Hadar. There was that one where there was that group, that faction that was trying to get themselves weaned off the white because some had a natural ability not to.
Absolutely.
And they kidnapped Bashir and they tried to get. So
but they even mentioned you even mentioned in
that
that same episode that if they could break themselves of the white, they don't have to be under the Dominion's heel.
That's so you see that there. That is not something he's not creating something completely new there, but he's taking advantage of something that was laid, like the groundwork that was laid, and I love extending that initial canon groundwork into STO.
Right.
I think that's what when Cryptic does that, they nail it. So Murphy doing that, plus you got me in the Gamma Quadrant.
Yeah.
And I like that too.
So Murphy's series has a whole 2 different routes to go. They can explore the Antonidian galaxy. You can explore the Jem'Hadar Alliance. It's going to go in several different directions, all stationed around this new space station, this
Cool.
Deep Space 11.
And I I think it's being reviewed quite well in the Foundry. So
yes, it is.
So go over to JupiterBroadcasting.com again and vote on the ones you like, and the one that wins in the episode when we come back. So that'll be on January 4th. We'll feature the trailer of the one that wins. The wiener.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, we'll be gone for a little bit, so enjoy your holidays. And if you'd like to send us any feedback or give us some show suggestions, anything like that, send those over to Stoked at JupiterBroadcasting.com.
You can also stop over at JupiterColony.com anytime.
Yeah.
Hop down to the Stoked
conversations
subforum.
in there.
Great stuff.
And JupiterBroadcasting.com/calendar is when you can find out when we're doing this stuff live. Like the good folks in the IRC chat room right now who've been chatting with us in between segments and stuff like that. There's always a lot more Stoked when you watch live.
Yep.
So check that out. Okay, everyone, we'll have a great holiday, and we'll see you right back here in 2011. Oh. Yeah, I'll just wait to clean that up after the show. All right, here we go. 3,
It's
2.
warm. Try engage or something. What? What? Oh, fail. Oh no. Oh, Murphy, you ruined everything. Get back in your chair. Stop dancing. I can't stop dancing.